Good morning, my friends. Now let's continue work on our NJSLA practice test, question number 9, part C. So, according to part A, we created two inequalities and we graphed it, and we know those overshaded area is our solution area, which means if I randomly pick up any point here, which will satisfy both two inequalities. Now, for part B, we also checked all those 5 choices, and we found out 3 of them meet both two inequalities we created. Now, for part C, it's talking about if Leah babysit for 7 hours this month already, and what is the minimum number of hours she would to work for ice cream shop. Now back to our inequality system where we have 5x plus 8y must be greater or equal than $120. X hours plus y hours must be less or equal than 20 hours. So when we know that Leah babysits for 7 hours, which means we know x is 7, since x represents the number of hours for babysitting. Now, if we substitute x equals 7 back to the second inequality, we can find out that y is less or equal than 13 hours. However, that is the maximum number for ice cream shop. Now, the question for part C is asking you the minimum number. Therefore, we need to substitute x back to the first inequality. Now, let's see what can we do. We have 5 times 7 plus 8y must be greater than or equal to 120. 35 plus 8y must be greater or equal than 120. So, subtract 35, inverse operation from both sides, where we have 8y must be greater or equal than, this is 85. Isolate y by dividing 8 for both sides. We have y must be greater or equal than 10.6 and some numbers. And read the question. It says, give your answer to the nearest whole hour, where we can round it to 11 hours. Okay, which means Leah must work at least 11 hours to meet the minimum monthly payment. Okay, let me do a quick summary for part C. It says Leah babysits 7 hours for babysitting, which means x equals 7. And you need to substitute x equals 7 back to your two inequalities. From the second one, we got your y, the maximum number, which is 13. However, the question asks you what is the minimum number of ice cream shop. Then you have to substitute your x back to the first inequality. Therefore, we have y equal 11 hours, which is the minimum hour. Now let's look at part D. It says Leah prefers babysitting more time. Now, out of 20 total hours, what will be the maximum number of hours for babysitting? And she still can make $120 per month. In order to answer this question, the best way to do is observe our graphic. And we know that x represents the number of hours for babysitting, and we know this overshaded area is your solution area. Now let's see. For the largest or the biggest x we can find is probably the number between 10 and 15, somewhere here. Okay, I might can try as x equal 12 or 13, and I do not think it's 14. Or I do not want to try 11. Let's try those two parts. See which one will meet the requirement. So if x is 12, then your y must be 8. If x is 13, the maximum for y, which is 7. Because the sum of them must be less than or equal to 20 from the second inequality. Now let's see which one will meet our requirement here. I'm going to write that down. 12 and 8 for the first choice, 13 and 7 for the second choice. Now, when x equal 12, y equal 8, 5 times 12 plus 8 times 8. Will this be greater or equal than 120? Let's see, that's 60 plus 64, which is 124. Okay, good. That one works. Now let's check this one. 13 times 5 plus 8 times 7. Will this greater or equal to 120? Let's see. This is 65 plus 56. And that is 121, which is greater than 120. Okay, this point works too. Now let's see. Because it asks the maximum value of x. Someone might say, what about 14? Now let's try 14. If x is 14, the maximum value for y is going to be 6. Now let's see 5 times 14 plus 8 times 6. Will this be greater or equal to 120? Okay, that's 70 plus 48, which is 118. That doesn't meet the requirement. Therefore, the greatest number of x, which is 13. Now, back to our graphing part. I would like to say it's probably somewhere here, right on the edge of the crossing point, something which is 13 hours for x. And there's no more than this number, and we just tried 14, doesn't work here. Okay, so the maximum hour Leah can work as a babysitter is 13. Let me make a little summary for part D. So for part D, it asks you what will be the maximum hour Leah can work as a babysitting. Observing the graphing, we guess probably is 12 hours or 13 hours. And then we made 2 guessing points. Let x equal 12, then the maximum number for y is 8. Let x equal 13, then the maximum number for y, which is 7. And we substitute both of them back to check. And we checked 12 works, 13 works. And we also checked x equal 14 doesn't work. Therefore, x equal 13 is going to be the maximum number for Leah works as a babysitter.